So tribute speeches honor someone, and the kind of situations in which you're going to find tribute speeches tend to be things like wedding toasts or when someone receives some kind of achievement award or like a eulogy in someone's funeral. You say good things about the person. Um, so for this particular tribute speech, it should be 4 to 5 minutes long. Again, it's honoring someone. The speech is worth 50 points, and the goal of the speech is to give fitting tribute for deeds well done. You can honor someone you know, such as your mother, a coach, your grandfather, uh, or you can also give tribute to a historical figure such as, Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Ben Franklin, Mother Teresa. It's kind of up to you in that sense. So we have a three-part structure for speeches, just like, general nonfiction essays, an introduction, and then a body, and then a conclusion. And the introduction is comprised of these components. Um, Attention getter, reason to listen, credibility statement, thesis or central idea, and then a preview of the main points. And so an attention getter is just that. It is a statistic or a narrative or some kind of analogy or something clever that grabs the audience. I mean, the mistake students commonly make is they begin with their thesis rather than a kind of catchy attention getter. Next, you need to establish a reason for the audience to listen. You have to make some kind of bond or identification, a connection with the audience. So if you're speaking about, your mother in your tribute speech, you could say something like, we all have these people who are very dear to us. Maybe it's our grandmother, maybe it's our father. I'd like to talk about my mother. Right? It established credibility. Well, obviously, if you're talking about your mother, it's kind of implied. But say you're talking about Ben Franklin, the way you would establish credibility is to say, well, I've been really interested in Ben Franklin and the founding fathers for a long time, and I've read significantly into the area. Right? That's enough to establish credibility. The central ideas, right? It's your argument, and everything else is sort of subordinated to that argument. It's the thesis, and it's something like, today I'm going to tell you about a beautiful woman. Her name is Sarah Lee Liss, my mother. That is a thesis. And this preview of main points, students often kind of, the audience needs a kind of cue. Like, so after you say, today I'm going to talk about my mother or something like that, right? That would be your thesis. You could follow that with, I'm going to talk about her in three particular ways: first, second, third. And that's the preview because it's forecasting the main points that are going to come. So I could say, well, I'm going to talk about my father, and I'm going to talk about his military career. And then secondly, I like to talk about his work life. And last, I'd like to talk about, I don't know, my father, the family man, something like that, right? And that's a preview of the main points. All right. Uh, the body, right? The body is comprised of the main points, and there's a kind of structure to it, right? You can't have a million main points, and you can't have only one. A speech should have, just like an essay, maybe 2 to 4, and a good number is 3 main points, and they're separated, right? There's supporting material for main points. You can think of main points again as kind of like your mini arguments that are subordinated to your main argument, right? So uh, the there are main points. They're supporting the main points with ideas. This next criteria, support materials appropriate for the audience. Is it something that people can connect with, that makes sense? And then this next criteria, it has to do with connectives and transitions. Like what the connectives and the transitions, you can think of like your body and the sinews and the ligaments and the joints and those kind of things. Those are the connectives and transitions that hold the main points in the body together. So you say, well, I just told you about my father's upbringing. Now I'd like to say a few words about his work life as a metallurgical engineer. I mean, that's a connective, that's a transition, moves from one thing to the next. And in doing so, it holds the whole body together. And then the next criterion here, the kind of plan of overall organization, well, that has to do with just general feeling. Does this make sense? Is it coherent? Does it hold together? Next, you have the conclusion, right, of the introduction, which is tell them what you're going to say. You have the body, which is, say it. And then you have the conclusion, which is, what did I just say? And so the conclusion it is a kind of, you need a summary. You need to restate, I told you in this brief speech about my father's upbringing, his work life, and my dad, the family man. That's a summary of the main points. Then you reinforce the central idea. My father was somebody worthy of honor and tribute. And then this idea of the effective clincher is, do you leave with a bang? It's like all these things in a way are the reflection of the introduction, right? So the summary of main points, well, it's just a preview in the past tense, right? The previous part of the introduction. Um, the reinforced central idea, that's a restatement of your thesis. And then this idea of the effective clincher, well, you could really tie back if you wanted to your attention getter. All right, and so delivery. What does delivery mean? Well, delivery is how you perform the words. How do you deliver the speech itself? And even though this is an online class, it's really important for you to maintain eye contact. And how do you maintain eye contact? Well, you got to practice. You either got to set up some kind of system where you're reading and the camera can't really, the audience who's watching you can't really tell that you're reading, or you need to practice skillfully. Um, Effective nonverbal communication. What that really means is, do your gestures complement what you're saying, or is your body leaking all kinds of cues as to your discomfort and your nervousness? I mean, we all have tics, and we move about. I certainly, when I was watching my self-introduction speech, I mean, I was thinking, why I really need to stand still. I'm too anxious. Because the thing is, does your nonverbal communication distract? Does it pull away from the words, right? And we don't want that. We want effective nonverbal communication. Uh, so this idea of articulation, um, do you say the words clearly and appropriately? Do you say the words clearly and appropriately? And this idea of vocal variety. Do you change the inflection, right? The inflection of your voice. Do you change the inflection and the kind of shape of the tonal and pitch qualities of your voice, right? And this is made up of rate and volume and pitch. Rate, volume, and pitch. uh, or are you robotic? If you're robotic and you're just reading, then you have the same vocal variety. But a real performer, like a skilled speaker, um, has success in controlling and utilizing the appropriate vocal variety for best impact. I think enthusiasm is very important as a criterion for delivery. Do you care? Do you care? That's enthusiasm. And this last thing, visual aids, well, you don't always have to use visual aids, but if you do, are they big enough? Are they too busy? Do you leave them up too long and thus they distract from your performance? Wow, these are just some of the things that I'll be looking for in your speeches, and these are the grading criteria that will form the basis of the outcome of your grade for your speeches.